The dollar has fallen 7% this year, and that's huge. Now, this doesn't mean your $1 bill is suddenly worth 93 cents. It means that against a basket of the world's major currencies, the euro, the yen, the pound, the dollar has lost value. In other words, it now takes more dollars to buy the same amount of foreign currency. And for a currency that usually moves in tiny increments, a 7% slide is huge. It's the sharpest drop since 1973. And while America's currency is sliding, China's yuan is surging to its strongest level in years. Investors are rushing in, governments are lining up, and the search for a dollar alternative suddenly feels very real. See, the US dollar hasn't just been money, it's been power. Every tank, every aircraft carrier, every trillion-dollar bailout, that's all fueled by the fact that the dollar is the world's currency. It's the foundation of America's global dominance. But now China wants to tear that foundation apart. This isn't just about economics. This is the front line of a new kind of war. It's not fought with missiles or troops, but with currencies. Because the country that controls global money controls global power. And Beijing believes that the yuan is finally ready. Oil deals that used to be in dollars are now being priced in yuan. Central banks that once only held US reserves quietly adding Chinese currency to their vaults. The system America built is being challenged in real time. So the question here is, can China actually pull this off? And what happens to the US and the rest of the world if they actually do? Now, let's hold on for a second here, because this is not going to be easy for China to do at all. It could even fail. Right now, about 60% of the world's foreign reserves are held in dollar, and almost 9 out of every 10 transactions touches the dollar at some point. And the majority of physical dollars actually circulate outside of the US. Up to 70% of all $100 bills and more than 2/3 of all US banknotes are held overseas. Why? Because the dollar is trusted with countries with unstable currencies. People in places like Argentina, Lebanon, or Zimbabwe often prefer to hold dollars under their mattress than their own national money. And the dollar is even the official currency of 11 countries and territories, places like El Salvador, Ecuador, and Panama. And beyond that, more than 65 nations are using it unofficially. Economies like Zimbabwe, Cambodia, and the Bahamas. Now, think about that. Entire governments, hundreds of millions of people literally base their daily lives on a currency that's printed in Washington, D.C. So all of this gives Washington something that no other country has: the ability to borrow endlessly at low cost, the ability to print money that the rest of the world is forced to accept, and the ability to sanction countries into isolation. Although sanctions are becoming more and more ineffective, I'm making another video explaining why, so make sure you subscribe. This is why the dollar isn't just an economic tool, it's America's ultimate weapon. And it's the reason that China sees the dollar not as neutral, but even as a threat. For decades now, Beijing has watched Washington use the dollar to enforce its will. Russian banks cut off from the global system. Even Chinese companies like Huawei have been strangled by restrictions that work only because of dollar dominance. And every time here, the message was clear. If you rely on the dollar, you're at the mercy of US politics. And for a rising superpower like China, that was unacceptable. So China sets its sight on the ultimate prize, breaking the dollar's monopoly, and not with bombs, but with banking. When Beijing first started talking about internationalizing the yuan, that was back in 2009, the world actually laughed, because less than 1% of trade was settled in yuan. No convertibility, no trust, no chance here. But China has been playing the long game. Today, the yuan is the 4th most used currency in global payments, behind the euro and the British pound, but ahead of the Japanese yen. And its share of global trade settlement has actually tripled in a decade. So where is it gaining ground? Energy. For 50 years, oil was sold almost exclusively in dollars, the petrodollar system. But in 2023, Saudi Arabia, under pressure from Beijing, started accepting yuan for oil. Russia now conducts the majority of its trade with China in yuan, and Brazil, Argentina, even parts of Africa are experimenting with yuan-based trade. China is the world's largest trading nation. It's responsible for about 15% of global exports. So when they say, let's do this in yuan, many countries just don't argue, they adapt. Okay, but let's be honest here, because trade is just one battlefield of the whole picture. To really challenge the dollar, you need infrastructure, the financial plumbing that keeps money moving, and Beijing has been quietly building it. The People's Bank of China has created swap lines with more than 40 foreign central banks, giving them access to yuan in in times of crisis. No need to touch the dollar. They've built SIPS. It's the cross-border interbank payment system. You can think of it as China's version of SWIFT. That's the network that banks all over the world use to send money back and forth. SWIFT is dominated by the US and Europe, which means that if you're cut off from it, you're basically locked out of the global economy. And that's what can potentially make sanctions so powerful, but SIPS changes the game. It's already moving trillions of yuan across borders every year, giving Beijing a backup system to keep money flowing, even if the West tries to shut the door. And then there's also the digital yuan. So while Washington debates digital currencies, China is already testing it internationally. Now, here's the part that Beijing loves. The US is making its own case weaker.
Gold and silver are at all-time highs right now. And while everyone is talking about gold, I want to talk about silver. Right now, we're in one of the biggest silver shortages in our history. And here's why. Everything modern needs silver. It's in our solar panels, electric vehicles, smartphones, and even AI data centers. It is the best conductor of electricity on Earth, and demand is exploding as we move toward clean energy. The Silver Institute says 2025 marks the 5th straight year of a global silver deficit, and production just can't keep up. That's why I'm watching Dolly Varden Silver. It's a pure silver company based in Canada's Golden Triangle, one of the richest mining regions in the world.
They just recently raised $30 million.
Billionaire backers, and land next to a mine that sold for $3.5 billion. If this silver bull run continues, Dolly Varden could be one of the biggest winners here.
This video is sponsored by Dolly Varden, ticker DVS on the NASDAQ and DV on the TSX.
The link is in the description, and as a reminder, this is not investment advice. Make sure to do your own research. And now back to the video.
See, America's national debt has ballooned past $36 trillion. In 2025 alone, the deficit is expected to top $1.6 trillion. Now, Washington borrows and prints, confident that the world will keep buying dollars, but what if the world stops? I mean, inflation reminded everyone that even the dollar has limits. Credit rating agencies have already downgraded US debt once, and political gridlock in Washington doesn't exactly inspire confidence right now. And meanwhile, sanctions keep multiplying. Venezuela, Russia, Iran, even corporations. So what used to be a rare nuclear option is now somewhat routine, and every sanction tries to send the same signal to the rest of the world that your access to the dollar depends on America's approval. Now, for allies, that's reassuring, but for rivals, it's terrifying. So if China is on the offensive, why hasn't the yuan already replaced the dollar? Well, one word: trust. The dollar works because investors trust US institutions. They know that their money can move pretty freely, courts are pretty independent, and that the government won't usually change the rules overnight. China, on the other hand, well, the yuan is tightly controlled, capital flows are restricted, and foreign investors still worry Beijing could freeze assets at any time. And that's the paradox. China wants the yuan to dominate globally, but it also wants to keep control at home. And until that changes, I do think that the yuan faces big challenges here. But cracks are forming. Russia was cut off from the dollar system and turned almost entirely to the yuan. Today, over 30% of its foreign reserves are in yuan. In 2024, Iraq started selling oil to China in yuan. The UAE, one of the most dollar-centric economies in the world, joined China's digital yuan pilot. And these are not just small symbolic gestures. They're evidence of a shifting battlefield. Each of these deals is another chip out of the dollar's dominance. So will it actually replace the dollar? And if so, when? Well, probably not in the next decade or so, because remember, the dollar still accounts for 60% of global reserves. America's financial markets are still the deepest and most liquid in the world. But wait a minute, because taking over the dollar might not actually be the ultimate goal. I mean, maybe it is just unrealistic, but maybe the goal isn't to dethrone the dollar entirely, but to build a multipolar system. A system in a world where there's a dollar block, a yuan block, maybe even a euro block. But in that world, America loses its greatest privilege, the ability to fund its lifestyle with other people's money. And for China, it would mean finally matching its political ambitions with financial power. This is why the fight over currencies matters. Because if the dollar's dominance fades, America's global reach shrinks with it. Interest rates at home could rise, military spending could tighten, and sanctions would lose their bite. For China, success would mean not just being the world's factory, but also the world's banker, and it would mean calling the shots in trade and finance and geopolitics. The dollar has helped make America a superpower. And if China can elevate the yuan, it could reshape the world order itself. So let's be clear, China isn't ditching the dollar, it's just challenging America at the very core of its power. And if Beijing succeeds, the balance of power could tilt in a way that we haven't seen in hundreds of years. So the question is no longer if China will continue to try, because it is. The question is whether the world will follow.